All right, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning and welcome to today's webinar. Today we're going to show you how to get started marketing a family law practice online. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be made available for replay in the next few days. We'll also make the slides available, so there's no need to take notes. We have a lot of ground to cover today, including 3 specialists who are going to talk about different aspects of getting started the right way. We've already done several other webinars for different practice areas in this series, and although this webinar is scheduled to run about 2 hours today, we have noticed that over the last few webinars that we've done, it's run more like 2 hours and 15 minutes or so. We'll try to keep it to the 2-hour mark, but it might run a little bit over. We're not going to be able to stop to answer questions during the presentation, but if you're having technical difficulties with the GoToWebinar audio or video, please let us know in the chat area of the GoToWebinar control panel and we'll have a look. We will have a questions and answers opportunity at the end of the presentation. So if you have questions along the way, please add them to the questions area of the GoToWebinar control panel or send us a public or private chat message and we'll make sure we address it at the end. My name is Dan Jaffe. Before becoming the full-time CEO of LawLytics, I built 2 successful law firms in different states, first Washington State and then Arizona, and then started a highly successful online directory for attorneys that was then acquired by a large internet company. During my years of law practice, I made a lot of marketing investments, and I also got badly burned several times and made several mistakes. At that point, I realized that nobody cared about my practice like I did, and that in order to succeed, I needed to understand how the internet works, and I needed to be in control of my marketing. So I did the heavy lifting back then of figuring out how this stuff works, and today I love showing my fellow attorneys how this stuff works and how to really get ahead. We have a great program for you today. Each of our presenters is a specialist in her area. I'm going to introduce each of them to you now so we can jump from one presenter to the next without delay once we get rolling. Victoria Blute comes from a journalism background and is the community manager here at LawLytics. If you're a frequent reader of our blog or if you've seen other webinars that we've done over the last year and a half or so, you're undoubtedly familiar with her work. Victoria is going to talk about how your potential clients use the internet and how you can attract them and capture their business by understanding the basics of how the internet works. Rachel Shalat holds a JD and a master's degree in practice law before joining LawLytics. She is our Vice President of Content Operations, which means that she's in charge of all of our content that's produced for our customers, and that includes millions of words of written content for our members' websites and blogs each year. Rachel is going to discuss content strategies specific to starting a family law web presence. Sophia Oliboni holds a master's degree in web design and is a design specialist here at LawLytics. When new members sign up for our service, she and her team help them choose the design preferences that suit them based on their goals. Today, Sophia is going to walk you through some of the things that all attorneys should know about website design. Before we get to our presenters, I want to spend a bit of time on foundational items that attorneys often overlook when it comes to starting to market a family law practice online. The marketing of family law has changed in recent years and is continuing to evolve quickly thanks to the internet. For attorneys who are willing to evolve with it, this presents an opportunity to make a lot of money. It presents a way to get ahead of the established and market-leading family law firms that aren't adapting to these changes. The internet has become the great equalizer. No longer is marketing success for family law practices simply a matter of budget and the willingness to take financial risk. Now, literally any attorney can break into family law with a minimum financial investment, and the previously established firms or attorneys are not safe in their market-leading positions no matter how big their budget or how solidified their reputation. This webinar will show you how to lay the foundation to compete now and also for the foreseeable future. The things that we will discuss require that you expend some effort, or they require that you budget to pay somebody for their efforts. Done right, the outcome of either path is the same. Whichever path you choose, when you make the commitment to building the foundation of your family law practice marketing the right way, and when you understand the strategy behind it, The time or money you spend will not be wasted. What's really great about the evolution of marketing for family law is that any attorney anywhere can get started easily and cost effectively. And that's what this webinar today is all about. And when you know how to avoid the traps and tricks that too many lawyers fall into while they're asleep at the switch and learn how to do a few simple things well, there's a ton of money to be made. Today's webinar is the first in a series of 3 webinars that will take you from just getting started marketing a family law practice to market domination. Today we'll cover the basics. We hope today's webinar will provide you with a solid understanding and the motivation to get started in the right direction, or in case your website is not succeeding right now, the motivation to get restarted and on the right track to success. The next webinar in this series, which will be next month, will focus on growing a family law practice. For that webinar, we will assume that you already understand the fundamentals and that you have at least started to apply them to your law firm's website and blog. That webinar will show you how the real money is made for most law firms. We'll take a much deeper dive into the forces that drive online success, including content and reputation management, and we'll give you a more detailed content roadmap to develop your family law marketing. Then, in March, the final webinar in this series will focus on crossing the chasm between growing a thriving practice and a truly dominant one. We have customers who are truly dominating their markets, and I can tell you that each of them started with the fundamentals that we are going to go over today. The final webinar in this series will show you that extra 2 to 3% difference maker that will become effective at scale, but that 2 to 3% should not be focused on until you get to scale, because that small of a percentage is not a needle mover for most firms until they're getting thousands of visitors and hundreds of leads a month. If you're looking to take your family law marketing to the pinnacle of success, we recommend that you attend or watch all 3 of these webinars on demand and implement our recommendations in chronological order. This webinar is for lawyers and staff members of law firms that are currently handling family law cases or that think that they're going to in the near future. You do not need to be a LawLytics member to benefit from this webinar, but everything that we'll be talking about will be easier to implement if you are a member, because the LawLytics system and service is built and optimized for that purpose. If you're just getting started with your website, this webinar is a great place to start. And if your website isn't working the way you want it to, it's likely because one or more of the fundamentals we'll cover today has been ignored or has been poorly implemented. If you're here, it's probably because you want your website to work to bring in more family law clients who have viable cases and also to bring in more referrals. But being here isn't enough. There are no participation trophies in the practice of law. Either you get the client's business or you don't. If you want to succeed, you'll need to commit to investing either your time or your money, and sometimes both. There are no shortcuts or magic tricks that will make you successful, but there is a roadmap. The goal of this session is simple. We want you to understand how to build your firm's online marketing for family law cases using sound and sustainable strategies, and to be able to use that foundation to effectively take your law firm's marketing as far as you want it to go. We hope that what you'll learn today will help you capture more opportunities so that your success will open the door to even greater levels of marketing achievement and stability. By the time this webinar is over, we hope that you'll have a good foundation to do the following. 1, start smart. You only need to really do a few things well from the start as long as you avoid the traps. 2, don't overcomplicate. Building a thriving law firm web presence is easier than most attorneys think. And 3, your participation matters. Nobody cares about your practice as much as you do, and you need to be involved and in control. This does not mean that you have to do everything or even anything yourself, but you need to know what needs to be done so you can recognize value and you can avoid wasting time and money. The good news is that participation is easy, and when done right in the right environment, it can actually be fun. And this webinar is going to show you how. You have many choices of companies and technologies to design, build, host, and help you market your law firm's website online. At LawLytics, we do that, and we also have a lot of competition. There are some LawLytics members listening to this webinar right now, and also some non-members. And so I want to take a moment to talk about LawLytics and how we're different. So what is LawLytics, and how do we differ from the competition? Well, our company is obsessed with the pursuit of the most efficient method of marketing for each law firm. As we see it, there are two major variables of efficiency. The first is time, and the second is money. LawLytics was created to empower law firms to have unlimited marketing success without wasting either their time or their money. We have two different types of competitors. On the one side are full-service marketing companies like FindLaw and Martin Del Nolo. LawLytics is built to give attorneys all of the upside of using full-service companies without exposing them to the potential risks, expenses, and downside. On the other side are do-it-yourself website software programs like WordPress and Wix. These are typically either very inexpensive or free to use. These programs also come with steep opportunity costs, and attorneys often struggle to make them work, wasting their time and also missing opportunities along the way. While both full-service companies and do-it-yourself platforms are viable options and generally accepted as solutions for attorneys, LawLytics offers what we see as a more practical solution. Our company works exclusively with lawyers, and our services are adaptable to every stage of a law firm's growth. Our members can start as small as they choose and grow as big as they decide without taking dangerous risks or committing to things that might not work. And our software was built exclusively for lawyers, so the learning curve is easy, enabling our members to add to and edit their websites and turn their efforts into new business without struggling. LawLytics is a membership-based law firm website marketing service. Our software and service is specifically built for and optimized for law firms. For those of you who are not yet LawLytics members, here's how the process works. The first step is to have a conversation with us to make sure that there's alignment between the needs and goals of your firm and our service. Once you've decided that LawLytics is for you, the next step is starting your law firm's membership. We'll guide you through the process, which typically takes about 5 minutes. And after that, we'll start the process of setting up and styling your law firm's website immediately. This is a collaborative process, and you'll work with one of our full-time professional designers one-on-one to achieve the optimal look and feel of your site to meet your firm's goals. The next step is adding content to your website, and we'll talk more about content in a moment. The goal of this phase is to have enough content to be able to successfully launch your law firm's website. If you already have a website that you want to import into LawLytics, we have the process of transitioning from other platforms to LawLytics down to a science. If you're starting a new website with LawLytics, we'll guide you through the content you need to launch. Rachel will talk later in this webinar about what content is needed to launch a family law website and how to build a strong foundation now to prepare for future growth. You can choose to create your own content or have our team of professional writers do it for you. When your site is ready, we'll launch it for you. If you're switching from another provider, we'll make sure that there's no downtime or loss of traffic in the process. Whether you're switching to LawLytics from somewhere else or starting fresh, we'll take care of all the technical details for you. Once your site is launched, we'll show you how to use the LawLytics system to add to and edit your website regardless of your previous tech experience. We can take you from zero to highly competent very quickly because our system was built for busy lawyers who don't have the time to mess around with complicated technology. Once you're on board, you'll be able to instantly add and edit office locations, attorney bios, case results, recommendations, substantive pages, and blog posts. You'll be able to rearrange your site's menu by simply dragging and dropping. You'll be able to create simple and detailed web forms to capture information from your potential clients. You'll be able to easily insert pictures, videos, and documents, as well as maps into the pages of your site. In short, you'll have the power to be as involved in your own website as you choose to be. And beyond the mechanics, we'll teach you how to implement a strategy that best suits the market, your practice area or areas, and the ambition of your law firm. We'll show you what works and how to create it without wasting time or money. And even though you'll be able to do it yourself, if you ever choose not to, you can delegate the efforts to us. You likely already understand the importance of having a website for your family law practice. But I want to take a moment to look at the most important reasons why it's essential to not only have a website, but to invest in the kind of website that we'll be showing you how to build during this series. Keeping these reasons in mind will be just as important in the growth and domination phases of your firm's marketing as they are in this start phase. Your potential family law clients are online and are using the internet to do research and make decisions. Even when family law clients are referred directly to you, they'll still interact with your web presence before making the decision to contact you and hire you. And if you don't have a website, you're at the mercy of everything else about you that exists online, and you have little or no control over it. With a website, you have complete control over your messaging and the opportunity to win the hearts and minds of your potential clients. Your website is there to educate your potential clients about their case, about the rights that they have when they're going through processes such as divorce and adoption, that type of thing, as well as the options that they might have. It's there to make a personal connection between you and your potential clients, and to cause potential clients to like you, to trust you, and to want to hire you. The most important functions of your law firm's website are to, 1, show that you care, 2, show that you know, and 3, show that you're successful. These things set the tone for the attorney-client relationship because they establish trust, authority, and confidence. And when you have your potential clients trust and confidence, and when they see you as an authority before the attorney-client relationship even begins, the chances of them hiring you drastically increase. And the benefits go well beyond marketing and sales. Establishing trust, authority, and confidence helps frame the attorney-client relationship and set expectations, which can be particularly important in cases such as dissolutions. This ultimately makes the experience easier and more rewarding for both you and your clients. As we present this, it's January 2017. If you're just now getting started with your law firm's website, you're already very late to the game. But that's okay, because for better or for worse, most attorneys who have been in the game for many years have not been playing it well because they've been listening to the wrong people and doing the wrong things when it comes to their website. Website marketing for family law practices works, and it can work better than any other source of business when it's done well. So while everyone is doing it, the fact that most attorneys don't have websites that are producing to their full potential is an opportunity for you and your family law practice. Having a website is a matter of basic business survival, but having a website that you take the time to consciously cultivate using the LawLytics system and the information that you'll get in this webinar series and from other LawLytics webinars can elevate your practice by multiples. We've seen attorneys who were struggling to stay in business start using the LawLytics system and become secure and stable in their practices. We've seen attorneys who thought they were doing very well start using the LawLytics system and double their business while actually decreasing their marketing expenses. There is no marketing magic trick here. There's a proven method, and there's a window of opportunity. Creating a worthwhile website for your law firm is like investing with compounding interest. The earlier you start, the better off you'll be in the long run. And like sound investing, there need not be anything fancy here. You don't need tricks, you don't need cheats, you don't need hacks. All you need is an understanding of the fundamentals and the technology and the time to leverage those fundamentals effectively over time. At LawLytics, we use the phrase marketing assets regularly. I want to take just a moment before I turn it over to Victoria to explain What we mean by that and why it's important. Most marketing that you do for your law firm falls into the category of an expense. The nature of most advertising is that you buy it, it gets used up, and then it's gone forever. Let's look at some examples of marketing that falls into the expense category. Yellow page advertising is an expense. You pay for the year, and then people throw the book away and it's no longer useful. So is billboard advertising. Once you've finished with the time that you've paid for, the billboard goes away along with all the benefits. Same with radio and TV advertising. And these are the clear-cut examples. But online, it's not always so obvious. When you, for example, rent a directory listing or a sponsored listing or a premium spot, you're renting disposable advertising. And this is an expense. If you don't renew and continue to pay, it goes away. Pay-per-click advertising is also an expense. You make a bid for a customer of a search engine to click on your ad, and when they do that, the money is gone forever. And it's gone forever regardless of whether they're a potential client, a referral source, one of your competitors, or a marketer trying to get your information to cold call you to sell you more marketing services. Same thing with banner ads, remarketing ads, online magazine ads, social media ads, etc. But content placed on a website that you own is a marketing asset because once that content is produced, it can continue to produce business for your firm indefinitely. Think of it like owning a building in a prime location with a lot of passerbys and having a great sign on that building. Once that building is owned and the sign is paid off, each additional impression that it makes on the public passing by costs you nothing. Well, nothing aside from maintaining the building infrastructure, expenses, taxes, and so forth that go along with owning a building. With content, you invest your efforts and dollars once, and if done well, your potential clients interact with it for years to come. With LawLytics, you own your website and all of your content, and we're here to provide you the infrastructure and give you strategic help maintaining it so that all you need to do is focus on your cases and on your content if you're doing the content yourself. It's important to note that just because you create content online doesn't mean that you always own it. For example, if you're writing articles for a legal directory or a forum that you don't own, you're investing in creating assets for the company that owns that directory or forum. And to benefit from those assets that you've created, you'll likely have to pay eventually. If not now, then sometime in the future, the company that owns that directory that you've contributed to is going to decide that they want to make money. And if you don't pay them, your efforts and name will serve to attract your potential clients to your competitors who are willing to pay for them for those ads that are supported and attract clients based on the previous efforts that you've spent creating content. This is a topic that could, in and of itself, more than fill a 2-hour webinar. And if you want to go deeper into it, Google commoditization of lawyers and read a piece that I wrote on the subject a couple years ago. It's as relevant, and maybe even in some ways more relevant today than it was back then. Because here at LawLytics, we're obsessed with helping lawyers find the most efficient way of marketing their law firms online. And because we're sticklers about not letting attorneys waste their time or their money, it bears repeating that everything that LawLytics does and help you do is geared towards creating appreciating marketing assets that you own and that you control. In a few moments, Tori, Rachel, and Sophia will talk with you about the various aspects of the appreciating asset that is your law firm's website. Before I turn the floor over to Victoria, I want to spend a few more minutes to talk about content. So what is content marketing and why should lawyers be doing it? Most lawyers think that they need a thing called SEO, which stands for Search Engine Optimization. It's about making it easy for potential clients to find your law firm through free search engine results. Content marketing is the most important ingredient in SEO. And without enough high-quality content, no other aspect of SEO will ever be effective. When you sit across the desk from a potential family law client, you're engaged in a conversation. You're engaged in a discovery process. You're evaluating the potential client's case and their ability to pay you for it. You're checking for conflicts. And at the same time, your potential client is evaluating your ability to help him or her. But during that time, you're also engaged in marketing and sales. Everything that you say about your firm and yourself and their case in general guides their perception of you and your firm. Everything that they see in your office, from your reception area to the books on your shelf in your conference room or office, to the degrees on your wall, to the way that the office is decorated, to its cleanliness and so forth, everything that they see in your office helps them create a story of who you are and whether they want to do business with you. Content marketing is about preloading your potential clients' perceptions about you and your firm. The information that you would normally provide to them at a first meeting, as much as you can put that on your website, the better. And here's why. Your potential family law clients are searching for answers as much as they're searching for an attorney. When you provide them with complete and helpful answers, as opposed to keyword-based nonsense or self-serving marketing copy, something very efficient happens. First, the search engines give it preference. Second, your clients find it, and what they find is directly responsive to the questions that they have asked of the search engines. Third, they instantly know that you care, know that you know, and suspect that therefore you're successful. 4, they trust you before they ever speak with you because you've already helped them by providing them with useful information. 5, they become much more likely to hire you. And 6, when they do hire you, they're easier to manage because their expectations are aligned with reality. In the next 2 segments of this webinar, Victoria and Rachel are going to go into detail about the basics of getting started on the right track with high-quality content for your family law practice. And with that, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Victoria, who's going to talk about the basics of the search engines and how to start building your family law presence the right way.
Hey,
Victoria?
Dan. Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can.
Great. Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon to those of you who are on the East Coast. For those of you who aren't familiar with me, my name is Victoria Bluten. I'm the Community Manager of LawLytics. My job is to keep attorneys on the cutting edge of web technology and trends and online legal marketing, and to help you learn what works on the web. So now that Dan has discussed a little bit about the foundational aspects of marketing your family law practice, I'm going to explain to you how your potential clients use the internet, also how they don't use the internet. We'll talk about how to recognize some of the myths that go along with online legal marketing and what you need to attract potential clients to your firm. And a lot of that starts with understanding some basic terminology and how the internet works. So the first slide that I want to discuss is going to set the tone for a lot of what I'm going to be talking about. And it's an important term, whether or not you're familiar with it. If you are, you may want to check your assumptions about what you think this term means, and that is SEO. So as Dan said, SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. And I've heard it described a number of ways, some descriptions which are fairly accurate, others which are totally off the mark, but I think the best way to describe SEO is to say that it's the process of growing your website's visibility in organic search engine results. In other words, helping more potential clients find you on search engines. So for those of you who are familiar with this term and with this idea, this may seem like a very obvious sort of description, and I may end up discussing some topics that seem quite basic, but it's important to bring it up because some attorneys get caught in the trap of understanding what SEO is as it's defined here, but they make some mistakes in how that process is carried out. So if you have some preconceived notions about how this works, check to see if what I described matches up with what you think. And if this is all new to you and you're starting with a blank slate, that's great too. So let's first talk about how search engines work, and then let's talk about how your potential clients are using those search engines to find you. So search engines work by finding, gathering, and displaying relevant information to those who are searching for it. When Google began as a company, their founders said that they wanted to organize all of the world's information, and that's sort of how we got here. There are 3 basic steps that search engines go through, and if you hear me say Google a lot instead of just search engines in general, know that the process is similar for all search engines, but I say Google because that's the most popular search engine. They hold the dominant market share. People certainly use Bing and Yahoo search, but there is a reason that Google is also a verb, as in to Google, and that's because it's the best and most popular method for finding information. Okay, so step 1 is crawling. You will hear other terms for crawling. You'll hear descriptions like Google's spiders or bots, crawlers, whatever you want to call it. Google has these bots that are busy crawling the web, and what I mean when I say crawling is that these robots follow links from page to page to see what's there. Google then sorts those pages by the content that's present on them and some other factors. Once Google finds a web page and figures out what is on there, Google then adds it to its massive index. It's about 100 million gigabytes. And Google does this so that it can quickly access the information when a search engine user makes a relevant search. The last step in this process is retrieval. And that's what all the crawling and the indexing is for. At this point, Google gets a search request and quickly decides what is most relevant. Then it pulls that information from its index and delivers those pages as search results. So, for example, if somebody searches for "my spouse doesn't want a divorce, but I do, what should I do?" Google will search through its index looking for the most relevant answer to that question. Now, how Google makes a decision about what results are the most relevant is to some degree shrouded in mystery. There are hundreds of different factors in that decision. They all hold different weight, and Google doesn't tell us what those are exactly. But the company has famously said that they want you to make websites for people, not for search engines. So, if you're going to make a website for a person and not for a search engine, just how do you do that? What that requires is an understanding of how people, or in this case your potential clients, actually use search engines. And this is an area where there can be a bit of a disconnect for attorneys. But when you understand how this works and you're able to put it into action, this is where your marketing can really take off. So let's talk about how your potential clients use search engines to find you. Okay, so we're going to start with a hypothetical scenario. For a moment, I want you to imagine that you are your law firm's potential client. In your mind, map the route that a potential client takes from needing an attorney to finding your law firm's website and contacting you. What does that process look like? Now, what I'm going to show you next is what we hear a lot from attorneys, and we'll use family law as an example here. Does your answer look something like this? My potential client opens their laptop, they go to Google, and then because they need a family law attorney in Phoenix, they conduct a search for family law attorney Phoenix. They find my website because I'm a family law attorney in Phoenix, and then they contact my law firm. If your answer is like this one, this is a common misunderstanding that some attorneys have when they think about how potential clients search for them online. They assume that the path to successful online legal marketing works in this way, but when they think that it works in this way, they tend to end up frustrated and spending a lot of money and time on things that they don't need. So to do your marketing efficiently and cost-effectively online, there is one major component that you need, and Dan was talking about it earlier, and that is this. It's content. So the very shortest answer to explain what SEO is really about and how to attract potential clients is that your website needs content, and we're going to talk about content in depth. But for you to understand why content is the answer, we have to understand why that hypothetical scenario that we just discussed doesn't make any sense. So in that example, we've got 3 possible assumptions. The first is that potential clients usually know that they need a family law attorney before they conduct a search. that they search for family law attorneys directly, and that they conduct basic keyword searches to find a family law attorney. So let's look at each of those assumptions and why that's not how clients use search engines and how content is the right online marketing solution. So the first assumption I said was that potential clients usually know they need an attorney before they conduct a search. And this is not always the case. What they often know is that they have a problem that they're not sure how to solve. So they'll open their laptops and go to Google, that much is true. At that point, they are likely to conduct a question-based search. So instead of searches like divorce attorney or Phoenix divorce lawyer, a potential client may ask a more complex question. They may ask, how is child support figured out for fathers in Arizona? Some potential clients may suspect that they need a family law attorney, but they may still do research about how their current problem could affect them. They may ask questions about community property or how quickly they can get a divorce in their state or any number of questions related to family law. And the thing that links their question and the results that Google returns and your family law practice is content. So remember that when somebody asks Google a question, Google's main focus is to return the most relevant results for the person who made that search. And this is what Google is talking about when it says that you should make websites for people and not for search engines. People need answers, and Google provides them. So they want to provide the best content that they can offer their users. It's the entire basis of their business model. Google is the dominant search engine because they provide the best answers of any search engine. And if your website is providing insightful content that answers the questions that your potential clients are asking, that's how you increase not only your visibility, but your ability to actually connect with those potential clients and to build your family law practice. So the second assumption is that potential clients usually search for attorneys directly, and again, that's not true. Potential clients don't always search for attorneys directly, and this is a flawed assumption because it assumes that potential clients search for an attorney in the same way that somebody searches for a t-shirt brand at a local store. So somebody might search for Hanes t-shirts, Target, San Diego, and the intent of that search is likely to see if a local Target has that shirt brand in stock. But we have to keep in mind that a t-shirt is a consumer product. That person likely knows roughly what they want and where they want to buy it. It's an easy decision. Choosing a family law attorney is an important process. It's a complex process, and it's one that has real effects for the potential client. So despite the attempted commoditization of attorneys by the legal marketing industry, attorneys are not consumer products, and potential clients don't search for attorneys in the same way that they might for a shirt. The third assumption is that potential clients usually conduct keyword-based or basic keyword searches to find an attorney. And in that example, the basic keyword search was for family law attorney Phoenix. Consider the basic keyword search for Hanes t-shirts Target. Now, this example assumes that a person will conduct a vague search. Maybe the person just wants to see if Target carries Hanes t-shirts. But if that person already knows what they want, they're much more likely to conduct a highly specific search. Think about the different results you'd get by searching for Hanes t-shirts Target versus something like Hanes men's V-neck white t-shirt size XL Target San Diego. Now, the first search will bring you a lot of different results about a lot of different shirts. The second search is going to quickly tell you whether that store has exactly what you need. People do not want to sift through results. They want an immediate answer, and in the digital age, that's something that they've really come to expect. And the same goes for your potential clients when they ask questions of Google. They are not likely to search for things like California divorce attorney and then scan through hundreds of results. It's not practical. They have a question about their problem, and they want an answer to that problem. And when potential clients ask specific questions, Google is going to attempt to provide them with specific results. When you answer those questions with quality content on your law firm's website and blog, you are more likely to be found in search results because your content closely matches a potential client's question. And by giving them the information that they need, you are much more likely to create a bond of trust that encourages them to contact your law firm. So here's an example of how law firm SEO actually works for attorneys. Let's say we have a potential client who conducts a Google search like, can my wife have me removed from my house because we're getting divorced? Or I want a divorce but my spouse doesn't. What are my rights in your city, state, province, township, so forth? You've written a blog post about this topic. It has lots of useful information. You write that blog post in language that your potential client uses, and that makes it easy for them to understand. This potential client reads what you have to say. It has helped to answer their question, and now that they're visiting your law firm's blog or website, they look around and they read other content that you've written. When what you've written is helpful, when it's informative, your potential client begins to build that bond of trust with you. Your content demonstrates that you understand their problem and that you know what the potential client should do. At that point, they reach out to you when they want more information or they're ready to hire you. This is an example of how your potential clients actually use search engines and how they're likely to connect with you online. Now, there's one point I would like to make real quickly, and that is this. So, I know that I said earlier that your potential clients don't usually type in basic keywords. Let me first say that words like divorce or divorce attorney, these are keywords that are related to your practice, but competing for rank with those words alone can be astronomically difficult, both in organic search and as well if you choose to do pay-per-click advertising or other forms of disposable advertising. Legal terms are among the most expensive and sought after. So how can a small law firm rank for terms like family law attorney or divorce attorney? And the answer to that is by adding those terms to a long-tail keyword and using those long-tail keywords in specific places on your law firm website and blog. Here is a quick doodle that I did this morning that explains why long-tail keywords are effective for family law practices. So long-tail keywords are those that are incorporated into a more complex question or phrase that narrows down the window and creates a more specific search. And this is really how many people search online. This diagram illustrates the value in going after those long-tail keywords. So on the y-axis we have the degree of competition and cost for a keyword. So the higher on the y-axis, the higher the cost and the higher the competition for such a keyword. On the x-axis we have the likelihood that a potential client converts, or in this case contacts your firm. And the further left you are, the less likely an individual is to convert. Let's have a look at a single word phrase, attorney. We have it marked there in green. That is a very, very non-specific keyword for which there is a lot of competition and not a lot of likelihood for conversion. Nobody in their right mind types in the word attorney and then scrolls through pages and pages of results. Now let's get slightly more specific with family law attorney or New Mexico divorce attorney, as you see in orange here. Okay, so it's more specific than attorney, but it is still a highly sought after term, and it's maybe only slightly more likely to convert somebody who searches for it. And again, as I said, potential clients usually don't search this way. Now let's look at the part in blue. Here we have some highly descriptive, specific phrases, and these are the kinds of questions that your potential clients are likely to ask. These ones have a much higher likelihood of converting people because they directly address the kinds of questions that your potential clients ask. There is far less competition for these terms, and there are millions of long-tail keyword phrases that you can target. With so much competition for some popular keywords, it is nearly impossible to have a new law firm website rank organically, and by that I mean that you're not paying for those popular terms. Now, if you do pay to compete for those terms through disposable advertising like pay-per-click, you may end up paying a lot of money to compete for web visitors who may or may not click on your ads and may or may not be potential clients for your law firm. As Dan said earlier, with PPC, once the money is gone, it's gone, and that's whether you have a potential client who clicks on that ad, whether it's your competitor, whether it's an accidental click, whether it's a marketer, and so on and so forth. Attorneys need to also consider that your potential clients have, to some degree, ad blindness. People are so bombarded with messages every single day that in a lot of cases they don't even see ads anymore. They can just visually block them out. On top of that, ad blockers have really made it easier than ever for people to ignore ads, even outside of regular ad blindness. And that's a new element in the mix in terms of that you may well be trying to advertise to people who will never even see your ads. Now, at this point, I am sure that some of you have this question, and that is, can I only compete for long-tail keywords? And the answer to that is no. There are small law firms that rank very well for popular law firm keywords, ones like family law attorney or divorce attorney. But how they got there is often a byproduct of publishing a lot of original useful content that's related to those terms. And that content is likely in the form of long-tail keywords and phrases. For example, so a small law firm may not be able to compete for a term like divorce attorney, but the attorney can compete for related searches when they write a significant volume of content that addresses questions such as, how is child support figured out for a divorced stay-at-home dad in New Mexico? Or can my wife have me removed from my house because we're getting divorced? And in these phrases, it's not only a matter of that you've optimized now for that extremely specific phrase, but also for the basic attorney-related terms that it contains. And I should also mention here that one of the major things that Google is working on right now with algorithms like RankBrain and some others is the artificial intelligence aspect of search. So particularly understanding intent. So when that potential client makes a search like this one, Google is trying to understand if that person may be looking for a family law attorney. Okay, so now that we've talked about how all of this actually works, let's talk a little bit about some SEO-related myths. This is an area where attorneys often get tripped up, and there is no reason for them to. Now that you understand a little bit more about how the internet works and how your potential clients use search engines, the reasons why these myths do not make any sense and can cost your firm a lot of wasted time and a lot of wasted money, I think will start to make sense to you. So the first myth that I want to address is what happens when somebody promises that they can provide you with quick results. And by that I mean somebody telling you that you can rank for an incredibly popular keyword in just a few weeks, these kinds of promises. Even the very best law firm SEO strategist has no control over what Google or any other search engine does. And building up your content does take some time. It's not a one-and-done magical sort of process. It's something you're always going to be working on and continually adding to. If somebody tells you that they can get your law firm to the quote-unquote top of Google in 3 weeks, there is just no way. That brings me to my next point, and that is the promise of the top of Google. There is no such thing. These two things are related to each other in that they have to do with the myth of overnight success. So for any Google search that you make, there is a #1 ranking position. We know this, but there is no top of Google. If you search for a basic keyword phrase like family law attorney Los Angeles, the results that you are going to receive are going to be different based on the day that you search, the location that you search from, the browser that you're using, the device that you're searching on, and that's among other factors. Just about the only thing that's going to be the same for each search that your potential client does is that they're all going to be different. To assume that potential clients search for basic keyword phrases like the one we discussed in the last slide assumes that they know that they need an attorney and that they search exactly for those terms, and we know that that's not always the case. Potential clients will often search by asking Google questions about their case or problem. Those questions may include basic keyword terms, but those basic terms, we've learned, are often nestled into long-tail phrases. And a majority of daily searches are completely unique for each unique search, a unique set of search results. The next myth is that SEO for family law is complicated or that you don't have the time to learn it. And that, of course, is untrue. You are learning a large part of what you need to know just by sitting here today. And as you can see, what is more complicated than writing content is trying to struggle with methods and tactics that don't work and that are based on false assumptions. That is far more complicated than taking the time to know what works from the outset and building on that. Next up is the special relationships with Google. This is one that comes up every once in a while, whether somebody is cold calling your firm to tell you that they have a special relationship with Google, that they can get you to the top of Google in a week, that they know something special about a Google algorithm update. None of this is true. Now, marketers can be Google partners. They can resell Google products like PPC ads or Google apps, but none of those things are going to help you, the attorney, with your SEO. Lastly, that there's some secret to ranking well. Like I said, Google's ranking factors and their relative weights are a secret, but what's not a secret and what has never been a secret is that Google wants you to write lots of quality content for your website so that they can provide it to people who are making related searches. And they want to provide the best content. That's what they're looking for. So when you write useful, insightful content that helps your potential clients, and you do that on a regular basis, Google is paying attention to that and can ultimately reward you with better placement in search engine results. Really, the only secret there might be is that content is really the key to all of this, and if you're not writing it, then your competitors are going to. Here are some other common myths that are old. They are dating back to the early days of search engines, yet they are persistent, so I bring them up. Keyword meta tags. So early on, meta tags were actually an important part of the SEO process, and for those of you who don't remember this, what you would do at that time is you would include the keyword meta tags that you wanted your site to rank for, and those pages would come up in results for relevant queries. Unfortunately, this process was quickly used and abused by spammers, and so much so that it got dropped as an important signal because it frustrated users who were looking for actual information, and it was in direct conflict with what Google is trying to do. They don't have a business if they can't provide people with the best search results for the questions that they have, and it's why they've worked so hard on algorithm updates to ensure people who are trying to cheat or game the system can't do so. The myth that more web pages are equal to better search engine rankings, not true. Not only is this myth untrue, it can also harm your law firm's web presence. Now, there are large law firm websites that rank well with the search engines, and those law firm websites do have thousands and thousands of pages, but the key difference here is that those pages are filled with useful content for potential clients, and they've been built up over time. They didn't hastily assemble these pages. They were carefully crafted to provide potential clients with the information that's the most important to them. A website can be large in terms of the number of pages that it has, but if you simply add those pages without good content to support them, that can really be a recipe for trouble. Publishing lots of pages without the quality content that's necessary to make those pages valuable to web users is very unlikely to bring your law firm better rankings. And in fact, it can even hurt your rankings as well. I pulled a little quote from Google's Webmaster Guidelines, which I absolutely recommend all attorneys go check out. It's really important to stay on the right side of Google's rules. But what the company says is this: one of the most important steps in improving your site's ranking in Google search results is to ensure that it contains plenty of rich information that includes relevant keywords used appropriately that indicate the subject matter of your content. However, some webmasters attempt to improve their page's ranking and attract visitors by creating pages with many words but little or no authentic content. Google will take action against domains that try to rank more highly just by showing scraped or other cookie-cutter pages that don't add substantial value to users. So again, Google themselves say this. I do recommend that attorneys go to check out the Webmaster Guidelines. So The next myth is overvaluing keywords or keyword stuffing. And again, this is a very persistent myth that really causes attorneys to struggle. And whether it's a matter of obsessing over the top keywords or stuffing keywords into your web pages, this is another thing that can damage your web presence. For those of you who aren't familiar, keyword stuffing has to do with the myth of keyword density. People, for some reason, think that how many times a keyword shows up on a page has everything to do with how search engines determine relevancy and ranking, and it's simply not true. This is one of those myths that has been proven not to be true over and over again, but there are still SEO providers who push this myth. Okay, last one. That spending money on paid search helps your organic results. Spending money on pay-per-click advertising is very unlikely to improve your organic rankings. In fact, search engines have done work to ensure that this doesn't happen. There is no special access or consideration provided by search engines for those who spend money, or as it often happens, spend more and more money on paid search. So, we've covered a lot of the big myths that surround online legal marketing. Let's go back to the big thing that your website needs, and that is content. Attorneys, whether they know it or not, have a content problem as illustrated by this little diagram here. So to do successful online marketing, an intrinsic part of that, of engaging potential clients and getting business online, is content. You need content, you likely need a lot of it. And if you haven't been to our website, we have a number of free webinars that carefully detail what you need to do to plan your content, to blog, to write for the web. So do feel free to check those out. But the point here is that you need content, and you're going to have to make some decisions about that. Now, if you want to write your content, that's great. At LawLytics, we can show you how to write it the right way, in a way that will attract your potential clients. So if you want to write it, good. If you're not going to write it, that puts you now in one of two positions. Either you've got to delegate it to somebody else, and you've got to delegate it the right way to someone who understands what you do as a family law attorney. If you do that, you'll be in good shape. The alternative is that you don't delegate. And the longer you wait to do that, the longer you wait to write content, the longer you wait to engage your potential clients who are looking for you online, the more time that you're wasting and the more opportunities that you're missing. And while you're not delegating your content, your competitors are getting ahead writing the content that you aren't. So we really see it as axiomatic that you need content. It really just comes down to deciding who's going to write it. In the content that you're going to write, an underlying goal should really be to compel your potential clients to reach out to you. And the way to do that isn't simply to say, call my family law practice now, but it's to connect to them through your writing. Your content should inspire confidence in them, that you know what you're talking about and that you're the right attorney to assist them in their problem, that they can trust you. After all, people who seek family law attorneys, you know, are maybe frightened, they're feeling emotional, and your potential client needs to know that if they choose you, that they can really trust you to work and fight for the best possible outcome. And you're also trying to convey sameness. Your prospective clients aren't just looking for an attorney. They need a human who also practices the law and really understands their problem and gets where they're coming from and has empathy for their situation. So, here's what your content should do. It should show your potential clients that you know what you're talking about, so establishing subject matter expertise. And you can do that in both your website's substantive content and also in blog posts, and we're going to talk about that more in just a minute. But make sure that you do that in a way that a layperson can understand. So keep in mind that your potential clients may not come from a legal background, and you as the attorney, you are familiar with the terms of art. They likely are not, and legalese can be very confusing and frustrating. Show them that you are passionate and interested in them and their problem. Part of that is publishing new content on a regular basis. Nothing says, I am not interested in what I do, like an abandoned blog or a website that doesn't have new content that's published on a regular basis. They also need to understand that the problem that they're facing is complex, but it's one that you are uniquely suited to help them solve. Content can show up in a lot of different forms, and these are the basic structural elements that you'll feature on your website. The text, of course, is the most basic part of your website, and before you start delving into bells and whistles like video and audio, it's really important to have a strong, well-established foundation of text content. Once that is established, then you can start thinking about enhancements like infographics and video, which do add to your web presence and can really be helpful educational tools for your potential clients. But that written content has to come first. So there are three basic types of content. We have blog content, we have substantive content, which is also sometimes referred to as evergreen content, and lastly we have reputational content. And each of these are different from each other and serve different purposes, so we're going to discuss why that is and why you need to develop each of these. So let's go ahead and start with blog content. So whether the idea of blogging for your law firm is completely new to you, or you know that you need to and you haven't gotten around to it yet, blogging is really one of the most efficient and effective ways to market your firm for a number of reasons. A blog for your family law practice helps your firm stay relevant. Many potential clients use the web to find their attorney, and a lack of participation online can raise some red flags for your potential clients. They expect to find you online just as they do with everything else, and they expect to find that you're participating in the online discussion. Blogging on a regular basis allows you to consistently connect with potential clients while creating discourse about a variety of topics. It helps to answer the questions that they have and to build that bond of trust. If you're an attorney who is worried about traffic, about rankings, about SEO, you are not alone. A lot of attorneys are. And one question that we often get here at LawLytics is from those attorneys who ask us, my SEO strategy doesn't seem to be working. How can I improve my traffic and rankings? And a follow-up question that we often ask is, how often are you blogging? When SEO strategy isn't working, what that can often be attributed to is a lack of content in the form of blogging, whether that's infrequent blogging or no blogging at all. By writing blogs on a regular basis, you can improve your traffic. So the more quality content you write, the more opportunities Google's spiders see to crawl back to your website and index that new material for relevant searches that your potential clients may make. They are always looking for new material. Blogging makes you and your firm unique as well. It helps to build relationships with potential clients. It sets you apart from lawyers who aren't blogging, but above all, it's really a place to show your potential clients that you care about the questions that they're asking and that you're devoting individual blog posts to answering those questions. It gives you a space to give your opinion, to make commentary, and to keep people returning to your website as well. Here is another thing that attorneys will want to consider about blogging. There are an increasing number of small firms that are being eaten up by larger firms, and you'll want a way to make sure that your presence is unique and priceless, even in the face of a merger. And that's where thought leadership comes in. Blogging isn't only an appreciating asset for your law firm, it's an asset for you personally too. If it comes time to trim the fat when a merger happens, a large law firm may not cut an individual who has amassed a large following with a blog. Blogs really establish you as a thought leader. That's somebody who's an authority in their field, uniquely influential. And because blogs are highly effective in connecting with potential clients and turning them into your clients, a blog is a major asset for your law firm, for you, for your financial security, and for your future as well. So now that you know a little bit more about blogging, keep in mind that at the LawLytics website we have a lot of free resources for you to look at if you need blog topic inspiration or you're ready to start thinking about content planning. And we'll revisit blogging a little bit later as well. So, substantive content. This is the meat of your website. And this is sometimes referred to as evergreen content because it's the content that will remain consistent and consistently relevant for your readership for a long time. Here are some of the areas that constitute substantive pages, and they can really be divided into two categories. The first is the pages that are about you, so the About Your Firm page, your attorney bio or bios if you have more than one attorney, your office location or locations, recommendations from happy former clients, and other things like case results that demonstrate your capability. The second category is the pages that are about your potential clients and about the problem or case that they're facing. So that includes practice area pages, the pages that detail the important aspects about the law and the place where you live, local pages that help you strategically target your specific local audience, frequently asked questions pages that help with things like client expectation management and case studies. Let's start with this topic, about your firm. A lot of times we see about your firm pages that are very conservative, and maybe they're just a series of facts about the firm. That's not very engaging. So think about how on your firm's page, and this is aside from the individual bio pages, how are you going to refer to yourself? Are you going to talk about yourself in the first person? Are you going to choose third person? And there are benefits and drawbacks to each of those choices. I actually wrote a blog about this in mid-November about when you may want to choose first, second, or third person. So feel free to check that out at the LawLytics blog if you need some help deciding or you're just sort of curious about the various considerations. As you're writing the page, ask yourself, does this really set you apart from other family law attorneys and practices? What makes your firm unique? What is your unique selling proposition, your USP? Does it get to the heart of who you are? Does it let your audience know you? And that takes us to a related page, which is your attorney bio. So your attorney bio is one of the most visited pages and one of the most important pages on your site, and it can really act as a powerful business generator, but only when it's written the right way, and this requires some thought. One thing that happens a lot of times with attorney bios is that attorneys are tempted to rattle off long lists of facts about their educational history or their accolades and awards and so forth. And there's a place for that, and there's a way to do that. But the trick with attorney bios is not to talk about your accomplishments in the way that you might to another attorney, but to think about this in the context of what it means to your potential client. So let's take a look at what your potential client cares about. It is really important to understand how your potential clients and your referral sources approach the information that they're consuming about you. So before your potential clients or referral sources consider things like your accomplishments or your educational history, they want to know about you as a person. There's that saying that says that people won't care about what you know until they know how much you care. And here this is very fitting. So aside from knowing how much you care about what you do, your potential clients also want to know about how enthusiastic you are, how intense is your interest in your practice, in them, and their problem. Once they know that you care about them and that you care about what you do, then they want to know what you've done. So here's a way to think about this. Write about your journey to the law. You've got to show your potential clients that you care about them, their case, and your practice. So consider answering some of the following questions. How did you get to where you are right now? Why is it that you chose to handle the cases that you do? And in this case, the type of cases that your potential client wonders if you can help them with. What inspired you to become a lawyer? What inspired your career path? What happened during your formative years to make you decide that you wanted to practice law? Secondly, what motivates you as an attorney and as a person? And the deeper that you can dig for the things that motivate you outside of just winning or making money, the more you can make it about your potential client and your success being dependent upon the valuable benefit that you provide to clients, the more relatable that you make yourself to a potential client. And it's about the things like getting a client through a difficult situation with peace of mind. So ask yourself what drives you to do it, what inspires you. Who do you surround yourself with? So potential clients want to know who you surround yourself with, and not just in the law, although that's important too, but also in your life. So what kinds of extracurricular activities are you a part of? Do you support some kind of youth group, Are you a member of charities? What do you do for the community? What helps you define yourself outside of the law? People will often read more into who you are based on the company that you keep more than any other thing that you say on your bio. Next question, who have you helped? So LawLytics provides a special module for doing your attorney bios and a separate special module for case results, so the things that you've done within the law to help people. And we also have a separate module for recommendations from clients and your peers, but that's not really what we're talking about here. Your attorney bio isn't a place for discussing individual cases, but instead to discuss cases more generally. Think about the type of person you typically help. You want to paint a picture of who you've helped and why you enjoyed doing that. Next question, what have you done? So talk about what you've accomplished in your law career and your education. What qualifies you? Here's where this part comes in. So you can talk about honors, case results, publications, but the problem here is that attorneys tend to just list these things. So instead of just listing those items, talk about what those things mean to you. Take a publication, for example. Talk about what that means to you to have been selected, how the process worked, why it's a big deal. Give it some context. For example, maybe you've been selected as a top lawyer in your area by a local magazine. What went into that process? What was the criteria? How do they define it? What does it mean to you? Remember that what may be obvious to you is not necessarily obvious to your potential client, especially if they don't have a legal background. The reality is many potential clients don't understand what the various terms of art attorneys use to compare themselves to one another really mean. So if you're AV rated, it's good to explain what that means. If you have a perfect score of 10 on AVO, what does it mean? What have you done to earn that? How many clients have you helped? What do you typically do during the process? And this isn't an exhaustive list, but the more of these things that you write about in your attorney bio, the more ideas that you're going to have for other things to talk about. Office locations. Okay, so an office location page sounds simple, and they can be, but they can be much more than just an address and a phone number. Your potential client obviously needs to know your address and your phone number, but give them some extra information that they need. They need maps. They need to know if you have multiple locations, and maybe you have different attorneys at each location. They need to know that too. They need to know who to expect when they go to a location. Then consider adding the relevant facts. How do you get there? Do they need their parking validated? Are there certain landmarks that they should be looking for? Is your office on a side street that's hard to find? Be sure to add pictures too. It really it makes things more comfortable for your potential clients. As you create this content, you make an impression on your potential client that you care about making it as easy as possible for them to find you and to get what they need. Recommendations. So recommendations are important points of proof, and there is no better way of proving to your potential clients and your referral sources that you can do a good job for them than having other people say that you've done a good job in the past. And you'll want to write a good lead-in to your recommendations page, but you can add something to each recommendation that makes it more than just somebody saying that you did a great job. You'll want to add some context to it. So as an example, let's say that someone writes a nice recommendation about you, but it's pretty non-specific. It says that Attorney Smith was a really great family law attorney. Thank you so much. Add some extra details with the recommendation engine that explains the context and gives more substance to that very non-specific recommendation, that gives it more weight and helps it make more sense to the potential client who's reading it. I mean, maybe it was a really nasty custody case or something like that. You'll want to give it some context. Case results. An important aspect of writing better case results is understanding what they are meant to do, not just what they're supposed to contain. When you know what purpose your case results serve, you can then write these really compelling stories that humanize you and drive potential clients to reach out to you. Your case results should inspire confidence, they should engender trust, and convey sameness between you and your potential client. Your potential clients will read other case results with themselves in mind. They will put themselves into the shoes of the clients that are the subject of your results. So that's why, more than simply just listing the outcome, it's important to explain why you fought so hard and why it matters in the context of the client that you helped. So let's look at an example of how to tell a compelling story. So this is the layout for telling a compelling story. Start with the facts. So here's an example. Let's say in this hypothetical situation, you're dealing with a nasty custody case. Maybe there have been allegations of child abuse. So describe your client's frustrations. Make that situation that your client is facing real and relatable to the people who are reading that story. What was at stake? Why is it, as an attorney, you felt the need to take his or her case and to put your energy into that case? Were you fighting for her? Were you fighting for justice? Were you fighting for both? What were the motivations of your potential client? What are your motivations? Where do those motivations intersect? And your potential clients want to know that your motivations are in alignment with theirs. It's the part of the how much do you care part of the pyramid. The challenges. So this is where the enthusiasm comes in. What were the odds and the obstacles that you faced in this case? How did you prepare for it? And this is a matter of not only saying what you did, but also how you got there. By only talking about the conclusion, your potential client may not understand just how much work went into that final result. And as you're talking about how you prepared, talk about why you cared about the case so much, that it becomes clear to your reader that you also will care about their case. The quest. So the details really matter, and that's regardless of what kind of case you're dealing with. Details go a very, very long way toward convincing potential clients that you are the right person for the job. And as a note here, you don't necessarily want to put your attorney bio here, but you can connect your client's story to your bio that ties things together nicely without restating it. You may want to include a link to your attorney bio as an example. And lastly, the result. Now, this is often where most lawyers start when they talk about success stories, but without understanding the facts, the challenges, and the journey that it took to get that result, potential clients may not understand this part without some context. So once you've built up the other elements, then talk about your results. And don't just talk about the legal result. Talk about how that result impacted your client's life. Like in this example, let's say the end result is that it's found that those child abuse allegations are without merit and that allows your client to keep his or her parental rights, so on and so forth. So the deeper you go, the more relatable it is to your potential clients. But the end result doesn't just benefit your potential client. After you talk about the general results, talk about how it better armed you to serve your potential clients or your clients in the future. How did this case continue to prepare you for the next case? So your previous successes as an attorney are important points of social proof, and they can inspire your potential clients to have confidence in your work, to engage you, and to ultimately hire you. Case results, when they are written correctly, can be even more valuable than recommendations from your former clients and other lawyers. Unfortunately, attorneys often list case results on their law firm websites as these 1- or 2-line summaries that may not mean much to your potential clients and don't encourage them to reach out to you. But if you write them in the right way, they can really become these powerful stories that speak to your potential clients and inspire them to seek your assistance. What we see on most law firm websites is a single-page list. So many results, not a lot of detail, victories, verdict amounts, and so forth. And these things don't mean a whole lot to potential clients out of context. So when you're writing your results, really think about a compelling story that's going to encourage your clients to reach out to you. So this is an area which Rachel is going to discuss in detail, but this is where most attorney websites really begin. But we recommend going a lot deeper than just the practice area pages. For your practice area, you want to describe it in terms that a layperson can understand. Then you want to give a simple overview of each area and then drill down into the specifics. What that gives your potential client is a choice. It gives them a choice as to how they want to consume that content. Do they want a basic overview of something, or maybe they want to know something very specific about the problem that they're facing? And that leads us to detailed law pages. So this is where you're drilling down into the detailed pages. And this is where you can really spend a lot of time and a lot of words getting more and more specific. Do not be discouraged by the idea that a potential client is only going to read a portion of what you write. You want to give them the choice as to how they want to consume that content. So if they read a basic overview and they're satisfied with what they find there, their exit is then to contact your firm. Or maybe they keep drilling down and drilling down into the content until they have read everything there is to read, and that's the point at which they decide that you are the right attorney for them. But it's important to give them that choice and to really build up a robust collection of information. And don't think that any question or any topic isn't right for your website. If even one client has asked about something in the past, that means that there are many more people out there who may be curious about the same thing, and they need somebody who can answer that question for them. Local pages. So one of the best things that attorneys can do to address people in local markets is to create pages that they can relate to. The further that you are able to hone in on local information, the more relevant it is for those potential clients in cases that are local in nature. So with LawLytics, you can easily put in pictures and maps and so forth, and you can easily create these local pages. The mechanics are a little bit beyond this webinar, but we do have a specific local pages webinar that is free and on demand on our website if you want to check that out. But when you create these pages and you create these silos of local pages, think about what happens in the various places where you live. And Rachel's going to talk about this a little more in depth shortly, but you want to provide your potential clients with as much information as useful to them. So, for example, for family law, what can you tell your potential clients about courts or locations of residence or adoption areas? Questions and answers pages. So every page on your website should really address the questions that your prospective clients have, but questions and answers pages are special in that they can do a number of different things on one page, so don't overlook the value of this kind of page. If you're sitting across the table from one of your potential clients, you know that you learn a lot about the questions that they have, about their goals, their concerns, their fears, and these are the same kinds of things that can go on a frequently asked questions page. A good page like this helps your visibility, but what it can also do is answer several questions at once. You can devote an entire page or a post to that problem, and you can link those pages within your questions and answers page, but you can also provide other questions and answers that may be of interest to your potential clients. Another good thing that a page like this can do is to help manage client expectations. It can increase productivity at your law firm when clients have questions. A good page like this can act as a resource that you can provide to them. But what a good FAQ page can also assist with is client expectations to help prevent surprises. It can answer questions about timelines, fees, or even what a potential client should expect during an office visit. So, for example, a family law attorney may find a potential client who has certain expectations of the outcome because of a perception that they have about how the process works, or they knew someone in a similar situation and they expect that their outcome and timeline will work exactly the same for them. And an FAQ page can really help with that transparency and to help manage expectations. When client expectations don't align with your services, that's where the problems often arise. So it can counter issues with potential clients who may have some unrealistic expectations. Every client interaction that you have is an opportunity for you to keep building a really great questions and answers page as a resource for your firm. So addressing perceptions and questions early on really help to comfort and educate potential clients. It aligns the expectations, it inspires potential clients, and it's a resource that can increase your productivity and your business as well. Case studies. So It's important from a potential client's perspective to not only understand that you know what their problem is or what their case is about and you know how to solve it, but that you have done things that are relevant to their case in the past, or at least that you understand it. Most potential clients don't understand the nuance and the legalese, but they do respond well to detailed fact patterns. So one thing that you can do is take published cases that aren't necessarily published but are accessible, and take those fact patterns from the opinions and lay them out in individual pages, and then answer the questions about why this happened, the procedure. You can even make up hypothetical fact patterns and talk about how the law works in regard to those. And your potential clients will look through those fact patterns to find things that relate to them or that resonate with them. And this is an exercise that does take a lot of time and effort, but it's well worth it, not only for your potential clients, but for the search engines that are looking for this kind of relevant material to provide potential clients who ask questions related to it. So we've talked about substantive or evergreen pages, we've talked about blog posts, we've talked about reputational content like your about pages. There is one more kind of page I want to briefly touch upon before I turn this over to Rachel, and that is a landing page. So landing pages are designed to bring in targeted traffic with a specific goal. So whether that is to contact your firm, whether that's to request a download like an ebook, to get on your mailing list, whatever that is, this page is for that specific goal. It is designed to convert visitors into completing whatever the user action is. Now, the benefits of building specific landing pages, which you can do in LawLytics, is this. You convert at higher percentages, and that's because instead of casting a wide net with traditional forms of advertising where you sort of hope to attract potential clients and you hope to attract ones that are a good fit for your firm too, landing pages can really narrow the scope a little bit in a way that benefits your potential client. They find exactly the sort of information they're looking for, and it benefits your family law practice, and that you begin to build that bond of trust with them and start building that relationship before you've ever met face-to-face. Landing pages also remove distractions, and this is a big deal. You can have a call to action on a regular page, that's great, but if you want to drive traffic specifically to your site to take a specific action, the best thing to do is to remove distractions, and landing pages really do accomplish that. And you also want to give your prospective client clear, specific instructions, and a landing page for one specific task can do that quite well. And the overall effect of this is that you can really drive down the cost of your advertising by being strategic with these pages. So that is it for my bit of the webinar. I'm now going to turn it over to Rachel Charlotte, who is going to tell you a little bit more about content. Rachel?
Thank you, Victoria. As Dan said earlier in the presentation, I practiced criminal defense in Pennsylvania, and I have, in addition to my law degree, I have a master's degree, and I focused in juvenile and family law and policy at the University of Pittsburgh. So one of the first things I'd like to talk about when you're getting started with a new family law website is sitting down and really taking some time to think about the audience for whom you will be writing. Who are you attempting to target? What are the general demographic characteristics of your audience? What will be the mindset of a visitor who's coming to your site? Someone facing an unexpected and acrimonious divorce might be in a different frame of mind than a couple who is preparing to begin the adoption process. So how will this inform the tone in which you write? Are you going to be keeping a consistent tone throughout your site? It's really a good idea to create an internal set of guidelines as to the tone that you want to convey and the voice you'd like to use, and then remain consistent as you write over the life of your site. Also, what is your local language? How do people speak? How are locations commonly referred to? For example, if you were searching for a dentist, would you search by city name, county, township? Are there slang or colloquial terms that your users might be typing in when they're seeking information online? Taking a few of these steps early on in the process can be incredibly helpful. Drilling down on the audience you are seeking to serve will be of much greater assistance to you and your firm than attempting to find vague or general information that covers SEO or just writing for the web. An unnecessary stumbling block for the family law firm just starting out can often be content. However, it's really important to stress that you don't need to invest a significant amount of time or money into creating content that's necessary to get your site launched. When we are working with clients who are launching a new site, we focus on creating what we call structural content, which includes homepage, bio, and about our firm pages that Victoria spoke about earlier. We also include a few substantive practice area pages. Generally, we plan for these pages to be a broad overview of particular topics. We recommend that before you launch, you cover each type of case that you handle or each legal service that you offer on your website. When you're starting out, we recommend that these pages be around 500 words on the shorter side, but ideally closer to about 1,000 words, so that you cover all the information that's necessary. However, we sometimes see attorneys who don't have the time or the resources to create separate pages for each type of service the firm provides. And this should in no way inhibit the launch of your site. What we recommend to do in this instance is to create cluster pages, such as what's shown in the menu here, rather than a separate page for each topic, including step-parent adoption, agency adoption, and termination of parental rights. We see a cluster page titled Adoption. And now this page will briefly mention those types of scenarios in which adoption may occur, but will serve as more of a broad overview into the process. And what that does is you're setting a roadmap for where you're going to grow that portion of your site as your web presence grows. As Victoria mentioned earlier, we strongly recommend an FAQ page in your initial content build, because this page can serve a multitude of purposes, including giving your site a boost with search engines because you're targeting common semantic queries. It will also give you excellent ideas for full pages that you might want to create in the future as you're growing your website. We recommend a general practice area FAQ at launch, and then drilling down into more specific FAQ pages once your site is growing. Even if you're very new to the practice of family law or new to having a site, you should be thinking long-term. When deciding which pages you'd like to initially add to your site, think of how you'll eventually want to grow your site and flesh those pages out. And the reason why we start a new site with legal practice area pages that are, like I mentioned, a broad overview is because we can easily add subpages that go into greater detail for those particular topics. An example here, to launch a site, we might include a page titled Divorce, which briefly covers a variety of different services related to divorce. And on this page, collaborative divorce, division of assets, and child custody will be subheadings at the time of launch. However, as the site grows, you can use this page as a map for how you build out this section of your site, creating longer, much more in-depth pages that address each one of these topics. Like I mentioned in the previous slide, an FAQ page, also another excellent way to set that roadmap for future site growth. And in the content department, we work with attorneys who are on the LawLytics platform, and we also work with attorneys who are on other platforms. And one of the things that I love the most about staying within the LawLytics platform is that there's very little planning in terms of site architecture when you're envisioning the future of your site. And what I mean by that is you can add subpages, which we call child pages, to main parent pages as you go without a great deal of foresight or planning on the side of web development. On other platforms, sometimes you need to kind of plan that much more in advance and speak with your web developer so that you can figure out how your navigation menus will eventually accommodate growing the site. But with LawLytics, like I said, it's very easy just to add those pages yourself as you go along. And one thing that I do want to caution here, so if you find yourself ready to launch a new family law site and you don't have time to create pages for each type of legal service, we really recommend doing the cluster technique where you have a longer page and you briefly reference the type of services. And the reason why we recommend doing that is sometimes we see people who, in kind of a rush to get that site up there, might publish a page that's titled divorce, and only says something like, everything is on the line during a divorce. We have years of experience advocating for clients during the divorce process. Contact us today. Because this probably doesn't provide the information that the user was attempting to obtain with, a search term like divorce in Des Moines or something like that. And it doesn't properly address that hierarchy of needs that Victoria spoke about earlier. So again, I would really caution against doing that. Again, you'll have time to add those pages later on as you're growing your site. We've helped a great deal of family law firms launch their sites, and I just wanted to take a minute now to examine some of the common mistakes or some of the pitfalls that we have to navigate around when we work with lawyers who are in this position. As I mentioned earlier, we sometimes see law firms who are really concerned with a site of their size at the time to launch. They might do some preliminary searching for, let's say, divorce firms in Pittsburgh, and they see that the really successful sites have a ton of pages. And this becomes a stumbling block. They think they need a great deal of content in order to go live. And again, this absolutely is not true. Adding quality content on a consistent basis is crucial to a successful site, but you don't need to allow some notion of how large your site must be block you from pushing your site live. The necessary structural content, in addition to a few practice area pages, which provide information about the type of cases your firm handles, are totally adequate for a site launch. And really keep in mind, this is just the beginning. One of the biggest benefit of doing organic online marketing in terms of content creation is that this is an asset, and it's an asset that's only going to appreciate over time. But the appreciation process starts at launch. So don't let unnecessary stumbling blocks hold you back from that. And the next is incorporating the audience guidelines that I talked about earlier. We sometimes see attorneys who really have their audience nailed down. For example, work in a small town, prevailing attitudes toward lawyers might be a little bit less than warm, and they want to come across as somebody you'd grab a beer with after work. However, this can get a little lost when they're creating content for their site, and the focus kind of shifts back to legalese and more of that stiff, kind of formal language. So an About Our Firm page may read something like, Mr. Faraday has years of experience handling divorces in Pendleton County, West Virginia, rather than something like, Matt was born and raised right here in Seneca Rocks. After graduating from WVU, he came back to represent his friends and neighbors who are going through the divorce process. So it's just something to always keep in mind. Write how you would speak to your clients. And another thing we've seen, and I think it's sometimes trickier when you're practicing a variety of different, you're offering a variety of different legal services under the umbrella of family law, is that tone, is coming up with a tone that you want to be consistent with, and that you want to convey how your firm will work with a client. Because sometimes a firm might do collaborative divorce process. You might do mediation, family group decision making, that type of thing, where it is this, you want to convey that you'll take, it's not going to be a headache, it's not going to be traumatic, it's not going to be traumatic for children. You keep the kids at the forefront of this process, and it's going to be a collaborative process, and it's going to be a painless process, and it's going, you're kind of, everyone has a say. And the main solution is working for the best outcome for everyone. But also you might have litigators who do the high asset divorce, who do the very acrimonious divorces, where the focus is on don't let your rights get trampled, let your voice be heard, that type of thing. So it's just meeting with your partner, if you have one, your staff, and coming up with how you're going to be consistent throughout the site, and what that tone, if you want to switch it up a little bit, and if so, how you're going to do that with making sure that you're still speaking to, nothing is getting lost to potential clients who are coming to the site who might be of different mindsets. Another thing we see, and this might sound a little odd, Well, we've seen sometimes attorneys who want to include practice areas that sort of are services that they don't handle yet or that they don't necessarily aren't going to handle. Sometimes they think that their site should have a certain page, maybe to give it, an aura of expertise or something like that. For example, a page on qualified domestic relations orders when the firm doesn't yet do this. They might think that this adds a particular type of appearance, but again, when you're in the early stages, when you're trying to get that site launched, don't feel that you need to include anything in your initial content build other than the services that you're going to provide from, day one. If you want to expand into a new area, if you're bringing an associate on in a few months that's going to take on a particular type of case, that's great, but don't spend any of that unnecessary effort up front. Especially when you're in the start phase, your time is valuable and you want to focus on what's going to bring you the best ROI. And also, we sometimes see lawyers who are, very new and they're just launching their sites, and the focus is not on creating content, but the focus is on learning SEO tricks and techniques. And I know this is something Victoria spoke about at length earlier, but I really, really feel that it bears repeating, especially when you're in the start phase, when you're new, you're just getting that site launched. Please don't feel that you need to waste your time learning these SEO tips or tricks or techniques. It's totally not going to serve you. What's best going to serve you is writing content and getting that site launched. And then finally, sometimes we notice some inadvertent mistakes. So those might be like, for example, a page that discusses the grounds for filing for divorce, and it might link to a particular statute. But then that statute is it's a resource page created by a very large law firm in a particular state. And that's something that we see commonly. Firms will create pages that are nothing but statutes for a particular area. We see it in personal injury. We've seen it in family law. It might be something like Rhode Island divorcelaw.com, so the URL is even something that's a little bit innocuous, but that's what, they might have a little button on the side that allows someone to contact an attorney, or some type of an ask a lawyer feature that's embedded in the page. And sometimes, again, it can be difficult to spot those. So this is why we always recommend just sticking to government resources, such as pages from state legislators, when you're creating a practice area page. And the start phase, I think, is really exciting because you're just taking the first step on the journey to creating your strong online presence. And one of the things you get to do when you're fresh is to track as much data as you possibly can. And now you might not be getting a great deal of traffic with a newly launched site, but there are many other data sets for you to track and kind of let that guide you in your marketing. For example, what type of cases is your firm attracting? Oftentimes, firms might have set marketing guidelines from the start, like you're going to be focusing on and marketing towards representing men who are going through divorce proceedings. But sometimes marketing opportunities just sort of come about organically, and by tracking different things, you can capitalize upon those. So say you work near a large military base and you realize an increasing percentage of your divorce clientele are military families. This could be something that you lean on and build a marketing campaign or strategy around. And it's always a good idea to keep an eye on trends in your area, and you can be gathering what information might be important for creating those local pages that Victoria spoke about. For example, when I was in family court, the county would get different grants all the time. So one year we might be doing something like a family group decision making. You'll need to go through that if you're petitioning for a divorce, or if you're in any type of a custody situation, and those could change for families empowered together, fighting for fathers, lots of new programs, grant-based programs, and that's a common thing that we see happen. And those are in some states they depend on the county, and different counties can be doing different things. So that's a great idea for a local page, kind of walking families, walking parents through what type of programs they might expect. If you have, for example, the CASA program, and someone will be be working with a court-appointed special advocate for children. You could write about that program, what a CASA will do, what they can expect, where they can expect to meet, what type of a role that person will play in their case, those types of things. Just information that might not be directly related to legal service, but that someone who's in that situation might be searching for and can help guide them through the process. And then finally, one of the most important areas to keep tabs on are the questions that you and your staff are being asked. So if you have partners, associates, support staff, you might want to consider creating a shared document to which everyone can contribute. And these questions can be incorporated into your FAQ pages and can be inspiration for future pages to add to your site. So it's always something great to keep an eye on. And if you have more specific questions regarding content for your site, I really, really encourage you just to shoot us an email. We can be reached at writing@lawlytics.com. Some of you might already be familiar with her, but Alyssa Rhodes is the director of our content services, and over the past couple of years, she's helped many, many attorneys create content and launch their sites. So if you have a brief question, you want some help getting started, you're interested in additional resources, or assistance planning for the long term, we are more than happy to help. And I just wanted to briefly mention that the next webinar in our practice area series will be Grow Your Family Law Practice, and that's going to air on February 16th, and it will then be available on demand after that date. In this webinar, I'm going to be discussing additional tools that you can use for long-term content strategy and planning, how you can flesh out your initial practice area pages, and some lessons we've learned from successful growing family law firms, as well as some common pitfalls to avoid. So if you're interested in taking that next step, I highly recommend that you join us on the 16th. And with that, I'm going to turn the mic back over to Victoria. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. So now that you understand how content works, there are a couple considerations that you're going to have to make. And the first is how often. How often will you be updating your evergreen content to include new pages? How often will you be publishing to your blog? And keep in mind that, as I discussed previously, for blogging to benefit your firm, you've got to do it consistently. Once a year or once a month isn't going to cut it. There's some recent data from HubSpot that suggests that businesses who post more than 16 blogs in a month receive 3.5 times more traffic than those who published only up to 4 times a month. And it's reasonable to believe that that trend translates for attorneys as well. Anecdotally speaking, we see that attorneys who blog more get more traffic. The second thing you'll have to consider is what topics you'll write about. And the best way to do this is to have a content plan. And as a reminder, we have some nice content planning resources that are free over on our website. The last question is knowing who's going to write that content. And will it be you or will it be a proxy writer? Either way, like I said before, you'll need content. One last point that I want to make is even if you're writing your own content, perfect really is the enemy of good, or as Ali Sachs over at Iris PR said, it's not a brief, it's a blog. So don't let perfectionism get in the way of you getting on a regular publishing schedule. With that, let's move on from the topic of content to the topic of website design, which is another important part of your web presence. And for that, I'm going to turn the mic over to Sophia Oluboni, who is our senior web designer. Sophia, good morning.
Good morning, Victoria. Good morning, everyone. So what I would like to talk about is just the basics in branding your site and what different elements that your site should have to be functional and to be basically easily used and recognized by your users and or your potential clients. We're going to start off with the first slide, which is your website for you or is it for your potential clients? Now, design that fails to communicate is dead. That is the purpose of design, which is to communicate. And interactive media adds a new element to that communication because it's meant to be interacted with. It's not a poster or a newspaper. However, the internet is relatively a new form of media, and problems with usability crop up when people think about the web in the same way that they long since thought about print media. Attorneys may say that they want something above the fold, as they might with the newspaper, or they might want something that is at the top of the screen. The problem with that is that web design doesn't work in terms of print rules. What is above the screen or above the fold will be based on what screen size or device that your user is viewing the site upon. So when you're putting together these elements, or you're working with LawLytics to put together these elements, you have to keep in mind that you're designing for your potential clients and that they are tech savvy, and what would be above the fold for them may not be what's above the fold for you. So don't get too stuck on that mindset or stuck on that element, because just design it to be as responsive as possible on all devices and all viewpoints. But I know that it's hard because most of us have grown up on newspapers, and making the transition to this new media, it's hard for people to divorce themselves from that concept. But keep in mind that when you think about web design, the rules are different now, and usability is actually key. Now, the next thing that we're going to discuss is aesthetics in web design. So aesthetics is basically the average user only spends 30 seconds on a site before they move on. So that's half a minute, and it is very important to have something that is visually pleasing to grab their attention. Aesthetics is known as the set of principles guiding the work of an artist, and that includes colors, contrast, graphics, and layout. So a website's aesthetics can influence the brand's credibility and perception. In fact, studies have shown a clear link between solid design and site credibility. Aesthetics really does have its function. Pleasant visual designs make potential clients feel more relaxed. As a result, they tend to find well-designed websites more credible and easier to use. So it's easier on the eye, and so it's more user-friendly than something that would be, in their mind, ugly. But you also have to have something that keeps their attention once you've captured it. How you keep it is by having good content that answers a potential client's questions and about their case or a problem that they're present that in a readable format. Readability is about featuring your content in chunks. So that would be headlines, bullet points, the occasional bold, and having something that could easily be scanned for titles and information is what you want on your site. Having the content there is important. If you have a beautiful but empty site, it's going to be useless. So if we're looking at the examples that I have on the slide, on the left-hand side, we have a site that is considered very visually beautiful, and graphically it is a well laid out site, but as far as functionality and usability, it is a terrible site. There is so much heavy text taking up every inch of the screen that the average user has no idea of what is more important. There's no hierarchy. So if I'm looking at this, it just looks like one big orange and black picture. I have no idea what I should read first, where my eyes should fall, what is more important, how to navigate to the next thing. And over to the right, that example is an example of good readability. So you have the chunks of text, and then you have the boldest item being the top title that you want your users to read first, and then the boldness and the sizes decreases based off of hierarchy. And so your eye kind of follows everything, and it trickles down and follows all the content. And then, of course, you have your call to action and a bright poppy color that stands out from the rest of it in the orange. Now I'm going to kind of explain usability a little bit more. I know I just used the term, and I want you to fully understand what it means. So usability is the measure of the quality of user experience when a person interacts with your site. On the web, usability is critical. It's been described as a necessary condition for survival. If your firm's website is difficult to use, potential clients will just leave. If the homepage isn't clear about what you do, people will leave. And if it's hard to read or it doesn't answer your client's questions, they will leave. Leaving your website is the first line of defense for users dealing with a difficult site. Now, 4 main characteristics that make up a usable site are quick and easy to learn. efficient to use, rapid recovery from errors, so 4 pages, and easy to remember. Some lawyers just want all of the bells and the whistles. They want a video background, they want slides with tons of movement, and other items that make their sites heavy and slow. It makes it harder for your potential clients to read the content on the slides or to interact with it because it's slow. And then it becomes a waste of effort. They're going to just bounce. You have to know when too much is too much and to scale back a little. Readability and usability is more valuable than trying to have a fancy website. Studies have shown that an application's usability could influence its aesthetics, meaning the frustration a user feels when a site with poor usability will negatively influence their perception of the site's visual design. They also show that users perceive more aesthetically pleasing designs to be easier to use. What this means is that usability and aesthetics are equally important, but choosing to focus only on one over the other for your website will lead to an incomplete and unsatisfactory solution. They are two sides to the same coin. Now we're going to discuss focusing on what matters and not sweating the small stuff. So if you're sitting there thinking, oh, is this the right shade of blue or the right font? You're focusing on the wrong things. Focusing too much on minor details like this can get in the way of attorneys launching their site and focusing on the content. Focus on what's important. Spending a week or two of time that you could be pulling in clients, going back and forth over different colors or very similar fonts will not change the overall meaning or functionality of your site, and you're losing business while you're wasting time on that. At the end of the day, each color has a meaning. Blue means what blue means. The fact that you use a slightly lighter or darker shade does not remove the meaning of the overall color. The important thing is to get your site out there, to promote your firm, and to get business. Everything else is secondary. Now, some people will argue that imagery is part of aesthetics, and that is correct. But if you're using stock imagery, which we do use here at LawLytics when we develop your sites, then if you're using stock imagery and you're worried about whether you're using a downtown photo of, let's say, LA, or a image of your practice area, or a professional photo of your office location, they'll each have the exact same impact as long as they are high-quality images. Now, the difference between the subject matter will not change the impact on your clients. If you spend several weeks going back and forth on these 3 different types of images, you're not going to influence your clients one way or the other. But what will have an impact is the time that you wasted on minor things. Next, we will discuss the importance of white space. Now, white space is one of the most overlooked and underutilized parts of a good web layout. Attorneys sometimes perceive it as empty space and a waste of screen real estate, but it's a very, very powerful and valuable part of your design. White space is the space between your columns, your text, and your images. It gives your potential clients' eyes some time to breathe. It makes people want to keep reading. When it's used well, it can really be transformative for your web design. White space increases readability for your clients. It actually helps people understand what they're reading, which adds up to better user experience overall. Now, according to research by Human Factors International, white space increases reader comprehension by almost 20%. Now, here are some other ways that white space will benefit your website, and it's things to kind of keep in mind. It increases interaction. Visitors are always in a hurry, and good white space prevents distractions that slow your visitors down. It will get them to your call to action faster than bombarding them with a lot of different things to look at. And once again, kind of piggybacking off of that, it helps to highlight your call to action. Now, a lot of attorneys they want to make things bigger, bolder, or they want to add images to their buttons to try to draw people in. But surrounding the item with white space is actually more effective. And overall, white space makes your site tidy and impressive. Basically, white space is essential because it indicates fineness and ingenuity. It's not bare or minimal or empty if it's used correctly. It adds elegance to your site. Now, here's an analogy that I like to give attorneys, and it kind of helps them understand the concept of white space a little bit more. So let's say you're in a crowded restaurant on a Friday night, and you're trying to have a conversation with the person sitting across from you, and you're trying to form your thought. However, there is so much noise happening around you that you can't seem to just kind of find the words that you're trying to find. Well, when you bombard your site with a lot of heavy bolded text and images and colors and buttons everywhere, it becomes visual noise. And so just like in the restaurant, your clients will have a hard time trying to formulate a thought, formulate an action, because they're bombarded by so much visual noise. While too little white space increases confusion and decreases readability, too much white space can mean a lack of content or user guidance. Basically, it has to be a balance. You don't want your site so empty that with so much white space that it looks empty, but know that if you start to decrease the white space in your site, you are adding to the confusion. Next, we will discuss Hick's Law, which is the concept of less is more. Hick's Law basically says that the more choices that we have, the longer that it takes us to make a decision. And the fewer choices that we have, the quicker our decision will be. So Hick's Law can be applied to fine-tune the user experience on a website. We can apply it to links, buttons, content, pages, navigation, images, and so much more. Building a great user experience can be achieved by slimming down our websites, reducing user confusion, and increasing conversion rates to call to action elements. One way to achieve that is through progressive disclosure. So by holding back some of the options until they are completely necessary, you help the users maintain focus on the primary set of choices while reducing the clutter and confusion. Also, think about the white space again. If you make use of white space in your design, you can direct your users as far as where to look. And this way, you're reducing the options competing for their attention. You can have too much of a good thing, and you can easily confuse your users with too many choices. When working on visual design of your site, you should take Hick's Law into consideration and minimize your links and options, thus streamlining the user's decision-making process. Now, another thing that can really help users with their decision-making process is your law firm's website links. Having poor link titles is a major accessibility requirement for websites. Most sites use overly general links like click here, which says nothing about what is to be found when you do. Link text should be clear and make sense out of context. I found that instead of using non-informative phrases such as click here, read more, link to, info, or any verb in general, it's sometimes better to make proper and concrete nouns in a sentence link. Nouns can help the users quickly grasp what they're clicking without having to read the entire sentence or phrase, whereas verbs are vague and don't usually give a clear picture of what to expect. Now, for example, you can see on this slide, I have two different variations. So instead of writing view our firm's case results here, where here is the highlighted element, choosing something like view our case results, where the noun case results is the anchor text, is a better form of linking. Poor link text hurts usability. So let's say you have a user who is visually impaired in some way. Maybe they use a screen reader. If so, they would have a hard time understanding vague links without having to have the whole page read to them word for word. In the end, the wording on the link does make a difference to the user. It's important that we make our links visually distinct from the body text and specific to the page or document that they are going to link to. Now, the next step in this process is defining your firm's brand. Now, your brand is your promise to your customers. One thing I often see is that attorneys want a lot of content in their logo. However, attorneys don't realize that a logo shouldn't be a sentence or or a paragraph or even a phrase, but a simple visual representation, and it should be easy to recognize. The goal here is to reduce the amount of content that you have in your logo. More text will not scale. It's hard to read. So think about it this way. If your current logo has a lot of text in it, ask yourself this: could you read this if you were to print it on a pen? Could you read it quickly while you're passing a sign on the freeway? A good logo has to stand on its own without a tagline, and a tagline is something that you can highlight in other parts of your site, but it doesn't necessarily have to be attached to your logo. Now, there are times when your tagline should be attached to your logo, but your logo has to stand on its own. It's got to represent your company even when it scales. You have to look to the future and create something that's sustainable, something that will work if you were to, let's say, grow your firm and add partners. Your brand helps set you apart from your competition. Another thing that I often see attorneys will do is they will love another attorney's website and they want theirs to look just like it. Or they'll like another attorney's brand and they want their brand to look just like it. But don't try to be another attorney, and this is why this is important. If your website and your branding looks just like another law firm on the web, those potential clients are going to have to use other factors to decide which one of you that they'll choose. Now you have to ask, has that other law firm been around longer than you? Are they better established than you? Do they have better reviews than you? If you haven't built up a strong enough web presence, mimicking something that you like too closely can be a real detriment to your business. And here's something else to think about. Now, your domain name. A strong brand will generate referrals. Think about the brand separate from yourself. People love brands. People eat brands. People wear brands. People are constantly telling other people about the brands that they love. Now, with that said, you can't tell someone about a brand that you can't remember. So if your last name is hard to spell or pronounce, then it's probably not the best brand or URL name. And it's just something that you need to keep in mind when it comes to your brand, that shorter is better. Now, these are some of the terms, some of the questions that I think are very useful in defining your law firm's brands. And they are questions that you should ask yourself to help you kind of fine-tune your message and figure out what sets you apart. So the first question is, what is your firm's message? What is your vision? What is your purpose? What are the benefits of choosing your firm? What separates you? What differentiates you from all your other competitors? What makes you different? What makes you better? What do clients think about your firm? Or another way to think about it is, what should clients think about your firm? What qualities do potential clients associate with your firm? And you can, through your design and your branding, define those adjectives that clients would then associate with you and your brand. Next, we will move to choosing a logo. In short, a good logo is very simple, memorable, timeless, versatile, and appropriate. It's something your potential clients will easily recognize. It features something unique without being overdone. Think about your logo. Think about the logos you know off the top of your head. For example, McDonald's. When you think about McDonald's, you already see in your mind like the golden arch, the shape of the M, the yellow and the red color scheme. Coca-Cola has been timeless. It's featured roughly the same red and white logo since 1885. Now, your website will evolve with technology, and that's one of the things that we help you stay on top of here at LawLytics. But your brand should be here to stay. Longevity here is key. A good logo doesn't just go on your website. It may be featured on your business cards, your letterhead, promotional items, pins, notebooks, cups, sponsoring banners, on a booth at a convention, flyers, and of course social media accounts. So it has to be versatile. You have to be able to write and visually represent it in a lot of different ways. So here are some of the questions that you should ask yourself to see if your logo is effective. Now, does it work when it's stacked? Does it work when it's shaded? Can it be resized down to a postage stamp? Can it be resized as large as a billboard? Can you print it in reverse as far as having a light or a background behind it? If it only works in one color, then it is not a great logo. If you can't shrink it or grow it easily, then it is not going to work. It should be able to scale to any size, both horizontal and vertical formats. If your logo can't hold its own in black and white, then it is not going to be a strong, long-term logo. Here's another thing for attorneys to consider. Attorneys often gravitate towards typical legal images. So that would be the courthouse, the pillars, the steps, the gavels, the scales of justice. But think about all the logos that you already know about that have nothing to do with the product that they represent, but are effective and strong brands. For example, Apple is a great example. Like, computers have nothing to do with apples, but Apple is iconic and you know it anywhere. And car logos don't have to show cars. Subaru is a Constellation, and the Dodge logo is a Ram. So don't feel like because you're a lawyer that you have to have these typical images in your logo, because every other lawyer thinks so. So if yours looks just like them, then what makes you different? What makes you stand out? Next, we will talk about your law firm's tagline. Does your firm's tagline capture your brand? And we talked about this a little bit earlier when we talked about your brand, and it's that your logo can help set the set of terms that people identify your firm as. And so if you're looking at the examples that I have on the slide, you, just by looking at the brand, you could easily think of the tagline that goes with some of these brands. So for M&M's, it's melt in your mouth and not in your hands. For Lay's, is bet you can't have just one. And from Dunkin' Donuts, it's America runs on Dunkin'. And so these terms, or I should say these taglines, help to separate each of these brands, and it kind of tells you a little something about them. And the bet you can't have just one tells me that it is delicious, it is addictive, and if I have one, I'm going to want so much more. And so you kind of want to think about that when you're developing your firm's tagline. You want to have something that is short, that is quick and easy to remember, something that says something about your firm. Now, here's an example of something that's always stuck with me. I lived in South Florida when I was growing up, and there was a personal injury law firm whose tagline was, after 911, call 411. And they used to create these jingles that would use this tagline over and over. And even though I've left South Florida quite a few years ago, whenever someone says the words 911, in my mind, I immediately say call 411. And it was an effective tagline. It is sweet, it is short, it is easy to remember, it is catchy. So just keep that in mind as you're developing your firm's tagline. So now that we've talked about some basic design considerations, in February we'll dig deeper into the elements of design that can have a psychological effect on your potential clients and encourage them to engage with you. We'll discuss choosing the right kinds of typeface, what colors mean, and what they can say about your firm, the various shapes of logos, and how they can affect a potential client's perception of your firm, as well as examples of how to make your content readable, and so much more. With that, I'm going to turn the mic back over to Dan.
Thank you, Sophia. So we are now nearly 70 slides into this webinar, and as predicted, we're a little bit over the 2-hour mark. We've gone over a lot of information. And if you're just getting started, or if you're trying to figure out how to reboot your family law marketing and make it work again, the good news is that you don't need to remember all the details that we went over today or implement all of them at one time. The important thing is to just get started on the fundamentals. If you're wondering where to start, we can help. And if you're already well on your way, next month's Family Law webinar in our Grow series will provide you with actionable items that are easy to implement and over time will significantly and sustainably add revenue to your practice. Before we go to the questions and answers, I want to mention that last week we did a webinar on reputation management for law firms. And I think this is an area that is especially important to family law practitioners because it is so public facing and it is such an emotionally charged area of practice in a lot of respects. If you did not catch that, it's well worth checking out. You can go to lawlytics.com/webinars and see a link to that, as well as to a lot of other webinars in this series and other webinars that we've done over the past several years. We do have other practice areas in this Start, Grow, and Dominate series. Some of them are already well underway for this month in the Start series. Others are still yet to have aired. And if you do have other areas of practice in your firm, it might be worth checking those out as well. I want to thank Sophia, Rachel, and Victoria for your presentations. And to all of you who have attended and stuck with us for these 2 hours and 15 minutes, thank you. I hope it helped, and we hope to see you again soon. And with that, let's go on to the next slide. And we'll go ahead and end the recording now, and we can open it up to any questions. Typically in these webinars, because they're so long, we don't see a lot of questions at the end, and I don't see any at this point. We still have a lot of people that are hanging around, and so I'm going to wait another minute or so to see if any questions come up before we end the broadcast.